And welcome once again to the show that fuels your appetite for adrenaline and alternative sports. Coming up this week, we're back in Austria for our second report from the epic cycle race that is the Peak Break. Then we're in Switzerland to bring you a report from the rowing race with a difference. That's the Red Bull X-Row. All that to come, but first we look back at the history of competitive snowboarding as we chart the success of this sport over the last 50 years.
The contest scene was the exchange of idea and progression of the sport.
It makes me do things that I'm not comfortable with, and that's a good thing because it makes me do better.
If you want to consider yourself to be one of the best in the world, you've got to be able to win these major contests.
Everybody wants to win. We just got to push the sport, do new tricks to be able to win.
30,000 people yelling my name and you just stand up there. I still have it in my ears. That was a nice feeling.
Nobody can take that away from you. It's just you in that moment.
Competition is in human nature, but that was far from the thoughts of early pioneers in the 1900s or those of Mr. Sherman Poppen of Michigan. In the Christmas of 1965, he invented the snurfer. This changed the history of snow sports. Snurfing quickly took off and competitions were the natural next step. By 1976, there were over 1 million snurfers sold worldwide. Bindings were the next key ingredient for control and speed, with Tom Sims and Jake Burton Carpenter leading the innovation. By 1982, there was the first US National Championships at one of the more welcoming resorts, Suicide Six in Vermont. By 1983, there were two disciplines, downhill and grand slalom. This honed the riders' skills and pushed the development of the boards. The event became the iconic US Open. In the same year, Sims created the World Championships and had the first ever half-pipe competition. Burton threatened to boycott, saying it wasn't part of snowboarding. While Sims and Burton were battling it out in the States, there were some Europeans inspired by their activities.
In the beginning of the 80s, we saw magazines with pictures of America. We started to copy the stuff that we saw on photographs. The first time I competed was 1985. It was the first time that a European showed up to compete against the famous Americans at the time.
Jose was kind of like the role model snowboarder.
By competing, we proved very quickly that we are very reliable on packed snow, even on ice. So that's why the alpine disciplines very quickly developed.
But alpine racing on a snowboard just didn't do it for some of the more skate-orientated riders. Legendary Terry Kidwell and friends brought some style to the snow and pioneered half-pipe riding.
We found this ditch in the summertime, and we went there in the winter after we got a little snow, and we built a couple kickers off the end, and it was one of the first quarter pipes in snowboarding. Kind of make snowboarding a little more of a skateboard style.
The half-pipes had to be shaped by hand and were generally natural gullies in the side of the hill. The sides were variable and inconsistent, but captured the imagination of the riders at the time.
The big change was the freestyle, the judging. Because skiing and everything, you count the seconds, you count the time. And then with snowboarding, it was the first time when you just had an overall impression. They just voted the best rider from what they felt like. It was no special rule, with just what the freestyle was about in those days.
Freestyle shaped the future of snowboard competition and was where a legendary rider from the American Northwest would carve out his name. Already the winner of multiple national championships in alpine disciplines and an accomplished freerider, it was freestyle that gave him his iconic status.
There are some types of people, some types of sportsmen, and Craig Kelly it's the same like Terry Harkinson, the same like Shaun White. You just have special people, special heroes, which will always be the best. And he was the first one in snowboarding.
By 1989, the now iconic US Open had its own halfpipe competition, and Craig Kelly again proved his dominance against the best in the country, winning another national title. At the start of the 90s, the rivalry between snowboarding's first real stars, Sean Palmer and Craig Kelly, was at its peak. These two were dominating almost every competition. But at the 1990 Burton US Open, a 17-year-old Norwegian appeared on the scene. His name was Terje Harkinson. With his aggressive style, innovative tricks and high amplitude in the halfpipe, the cocky kid from Norway immediately left his mark on snowboarding.
What's your goal?
Get a car.
You got a car? What's your goal? All right.
Where do you think the sport is going to go?
It's going to go far.
It's going to go far?
2 years later, Terje won his first US Open title and a new star was born.
You know, it was just dream. Was like I was beating the guys I looked up to, and riding with Palmer and Brushy, and especially in the pipe. From what I remember, it was good times.
It was good times for Terje indeed, and he won 3 US Open halfpipe titles between 1992 and 95. The Harkin had landed, and the snowboarding world watched in awe.
People got a little bit more serious about the competition side, where people started focusing on only one side of the event, and the culture style started to really draw different people. Like people who were in Alpine were more the jock who worked out at the gym, and freestyle was just like skateboarding was. It was pretty loose. It was a lifestyle that was very individual influence and pretty colorful, you could say.
At the end of '93, a Welsh snowboard photographer had an idea that changed the history of contest snowboarding forever.
You know, there were a lot of alpine events, there were a few half-pipe events, and you know, it was all a lot more relaxed and everyone was a little crazy. So we just came up with the idea of a straight jump, which is like the main jump that you do on the mower shooting, so that was the logical next step.
The air and style was born.
It was definitely a trying contest. It was hard, and I'm just happy to be here in Austria.
I think it's the best one that I've ever been to, just because it's like Supercross and there's all these people.
With 5,000 spectators at an inner-city snowboard event, the air and style was a real game-changer. The inaugural event was won by a young Swiss rider, Reto Lam.
For me, it was amazing to actually experience winning the first air and style, because it was within the history of snowboarding. It was one of the most important moments, and to be there on the pinnacle at that exact time really changed my life.
It was a performance for snowboarding. Before, it was always about the resorts. Everybody had to go to the resorts to watch snowboarding, and Air and Style really shifted that word.
I remember seeing the stadium and being like, wow, that's the contest right there. That's like a rock concert.
At the second air and style, the crowds doubled, and the contest was won by Swedish rider Ingemar Backman with a 720.
I ended up winning before Terje and Johan Olofsson, which were good friends and good people, so it was a special moment for me.
A year later, the air and style went into overdrive, and more than 20,000 spectators made their way to the Bergeshall Stadium. This was now the biggest snowboard contest in the world. Despite American stars like Jamie Lynn and Brian Iguchi, it was Terje Harkinson who added the air and style win to his tally of contest victories.
Everybody wanted to win as much back then as they want to win now, you know, because that contest has history and they really want to win it, you know. It's like a prestige kind of thing.
Snowboarding was on a very steep trajectory. It was becoming a movement, a lifestyle with music and fashion attached. The mid-90s saw a burst of events all over the world with new formats and increasing popularity. Snowboarding became a household name, and with it came fame and fortune for the riders. The '96 US Open took some influence from the success of the air and style and had their first big air competition. It was a challenge for the competitors and a hit with the spectators. Inverts were the order of the day, with Peter Line leading the innovation. The popularity of extreme sports was massive, and in '97 the Winter X Games were born, with snowboarding on the top of the menu. Based in Big Bear, California, the slopestyle course had interesting dimensions, but the likes of Brian Iguchi and Jim Rippey were making the most of it. However, it was the young Norwegian Daniel Frank that took the medal haul, winning both the slopestyle and the halfpipe. The following year, snowboarding was accepted into the most prestigious sporting events in the world, but it wasn't without controversy. Terry Hackinson, the world's #1 rider at the time, boycotted on political grounds.
There's a lot of reasons why I didn't feel like we should do the Olympics. People who didn't really come from that industry, haven't done anything for it, used to hate us, and now they're gonna just, steal kind of a sport. For me, it was just like, I didn't understand it. I think my dad is the only guy who really wanted me to go, I think.
I knew the whole problem about FIS and ISF, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do is ride contests, and for me it was a big chance to go to the Olympics. Like, everyone told me, hey, just to be an Olympian it's one of a lifetime thing. I didn't realize what was happening. For me, it was just, okay, I just won my first big contest. How big it was, I did not know at that time. Time after had to show how big it was.
Looks good, eh?
Back in Europe, the air and style was going from strength to strength, with 25,000 in attendance. There was one young Austrian who was dominating the event.
The first time I won the air and style was in '99. I did a cap 9 back then. Crowd was already huge. It was a 50-50 chance landing it, and I guess I just got lucky. It was a big surprise winning it again in 2000, and even a bigger surprise winning it a third time in 2001.
And we'll continue our look back at the sport of snowboarding after the break. And later in the show, we've got more cycling from Austria, after which we report on a rowing race with a difference. See you in a couple of minutes.